What's up everyone, it's Ajax here. Today I want to continue the trend with Halo and talk about the multiplayer. Really dive into the Master Chief Collection and talk about some things I think need to be addressed. Some crucial mistakes that need to be avoided for Infinite's sake. I really enjoy the Master Chief Collection. I don't know how many hours I spent on that game, the majority of which goes to the campaigns. I can't even guess how many times I've replayed Halo 1 and Halo 2. I definitely favor the campaigns, as I find it extremely fun to play with a story and objective. That's what I've always enjoyed in video games. The campaigns are the whole reason I bought the games, because I wanted to be able to play all the Halo games on the current generations and have them all together. And I got exactly what I paid for. I enjoy beating all the campaigns again. The multiplayer was always second to me, not that I didn't enjoy it, but I had some issues that would limit me to the amount of time I could play it without losing my mind. These problems made me drift more towards the campaign, making me put a lot more hours into it than I normally would have, instead of splitting up the time I play between the multiplayer and the campaign. And I was fine with this, as I mainly bought it for the story, so I never really saw it as a loss, even though I did enjoy the multiplayer from time to time in small doses. But then they came out with a Battle Pass, where both Halo Reach and Combat Evolved, which I really want to talk about, but we'll have to wait for another video for me to go into more details about it. But in the short term, it did its job, and made me play a lot more multiplayer than I would have. This made me confront the problems I've been having with the multiplayer in this game, that I can no longer get around because of the increased playing time. And let me be clear, I would have played a lot more multiplayer, even if there wasn't a Battle Pass, if some of the serious problems were addressed. It's not as bad as it used to be. Some of the technical issues were resolved, like the game not loading in, constantly being dropped out of match, the game freezing up in the middle of matches, and just sometimes the game would flat out not work. Seriously, when the Master Chief Collection first came out, there is no understanding of this on how much it wasn't playable. To this day, it still leaves a sour taste in my mouth on how bad that experience was. But given all the work they put into this game, there's only a few technical problems that still continue to this day, as occasionally I'll drop out in the middle of a match, or it says I can't access the multiplayer because I'm not connected to the internet, even though I clearly am. I got a feeling a few more patches and most of the technical problems will be gone, but there are still other problems that have much more to do with players and the game design. And this reveals itself in strange ways. When the Battle Pass first came out for Halo Reach, there was a massive problem with people going AFK so they can get experience points without having to play. It became so bad that 343 had to start banning people to try to get ahead of the situation. Some of it had to do with the design of the Battle Pass, but I think part of it was also because the Master Chief Collection's multiplayer overall punishes people for playing it. And I can hear you asking, how does the game currently punish you for actively playing it? Simple, the bouncing system. I think it's one of the biggest problems in this game that it currently has. As it affects the multiplayer, the bouncing system is just purely awful. It's so bad, it's to the point where the multiplayer can literally suck the joy out of your life. And I think I know the reason why. With the numerous hours I've played in this game, I've started noticing patterns in the multiplayer matches that tend to be pretty consistent. Players tend to end up with a consistent score with other players in different matches against different opponents. It seems that the way this game was balanced, one team gets 3 terrible people and 1 extremely good person. The other team gets 2 mediocre players, 1 good and 1 bad player. This makes the majority of the multiplayer matches end up the same way. With the team with the extremely good person, he gets the majority of the kills. And while the other team tends to be able to only kill the 3 terrible people, and gets destroyed by the extremely good person, with one of them only really being able to stand a chance. And for some reason the game designers thought this was a good idea. Spoiler alert, it's not. It's actually extremely terrible. It leads to one person getting all the kills, while everyone else is just outmatched in almost every way. This has been there ever since the beginning, and it's never been addressed. It's been an active problem in the majority of my matches, as the scorecards are always around the same, even though the games and players are completely different. This leads to boring matches, because it's just not competitive having such varied skill levels against each other. The players that tend to have lower skill levels in matches are never going to do well against the players that are really good, so why even bother? This was the reason why so many people went AFK, because what's the whole point of these matches if you're just going to die throughout the entire time? So banning them was more or less putting a band-aid on a missing limb, because it doesn't address any of the problems people have been having. It sucks to be everyone in this scenario, because I've been throughout every role, so I know. Being on top means you're playing against bots and have no one that can actually put you on edge. They eventually kill you, but it's not hard to win the fight, and you're going to win 90% of the time. There's just no challenge in it. And unsurprisingly, being on the bottom means you're getting killed constantly, which isn't fun either. And speaking of constantly getting killed, you have a very fine chance of finding yourself into one of those scenarios. The better you do, the more likely you are to be one of those bottom players. It's not because you're doing extremely well, just 3 or 4 matches of doing okay, and then you're playing against someone who seems to be professional. And this is what I was talking about with the game punishing you for doing well. Because if you have a game that you're doing moderately well at, in the back of your mind, you're worried about the next match of getting destroyed, because it doesn't matter what you do then, you're going to be put against someone that's 3 times better than you. I believe this comes from the game's balancing system, as it views the team's overall collective score instead of individual one. So you end up getting an extremely good player with an average of 35 kills per game gets paired with people who have the average of 5 kills per game. And on the other team, you get someone with an average kill of 25, and the pair he gets sets up with having an average of 10. It sounds pretty balanced in theory, but in practice it sucks, because all the varied skill levels make a battle either too easy or impossible to win. Honestly, I hate those matches. And if every match turned out like that, I wouldn't even bother with the multiplayer. But there are actually some matches where it's somewhat balanced. People tend to have the same skill level, and you can see this reflected with the score, as the top player and the bottom player kills are the difference between 4 and 5. In those matches, you feel like you can either win or lose a battle based off your performance. And that's far more exciting for every individual when they feel like they can make a difference on whether or not they can win or lose. That's what I want out of the multiplayer experience. I want a match that should feel balanced, so the players actually make a difference. I understand occasionally you'll get a match where you get stomped, and the matches that will be a bit unbalanced. Right now, I'd say it's backwards. I say the unbalanced games are far too frequent, and balanced games are kind of rare. The best way to avoid that is by putting in a system that balances players based off individual scores, like kill to death ratio, accuracy, and how long they've been playing the game, and trying to find people with similar scores and putting them together in matches. And having them go up against better players if they keep doing well. On the flip side, if they can't do well, drop them down to have a proper opponents that would be appropriate for their skill level. And especially, I don't want bad games to be something you put on the calendar, because you know since you've done well the last 2 games, you're going to be thrown into something unfair. And that's easy to achieve. All you have to do is make sure your balancing system isn't too aggressive. So going positive 2 on your KD doesn't make you go against pro players. This will help bring a fun and balanced multiplayer, and will help solve certain problems like frequent quitting in matches. And I think it will also help bring people into the multiplayer that don't usually play Halo, because they're actually able to play the game and steadily get better instead of getting run to the ground. Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed the video. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have something you want to say, please leave a comment down below. Okay, I really gotta apologize for the last few weeks. I haven't uploaded anything. This wasn't planned. I just sometimes don't have access to a computer. I'm really sorry about that. But thanks for waiting. That all the way, Ajax out.